Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. In his office in Kumogakure, the Sandame Raikage was sifting through the endlessly replenishing pile of reports and official documents that it was his reluctantly accepted duty to oversee. The huge man growled low in his throat as he read yet another sheet outlining the supplies Kumo's hospital once again felt they were in dire need of. I swear, he thought to himself as he approved the seemingly trivial list of demands. As soon as A's old enough, I'm stepping down. I'm a warrior for Kami's sake, not a Ing's secretary. His internal tirade was interrupted by a knock at his office door. Eyes open, he growled, before lifting his gaze as his aforementioned son walked in. A slight smirk spread across his hard face. This was the one part of his job that he actually enjoyed doing. Marched up to his father's desk, briskly, before standing back stiffly at attention and waited for the Raikage to speak. Some other cages, like that bastard Sarutobi, the Sandame thought to himself, might have enjoyed teasing their soldiers over such attitudes, but the Raikage wasn't one for teasing, and, as such, got straight down to business. Looking A over once, he said, I'm sending a team of Anbu on a recon mission and I want you to accompany them. A was visibly confused by this and, while most would stay quiet, well, he could only hold his tongue for so long before his volatile personality burst through. It did now, in the form of, I don't work Anbu, or recon for that matter. The Sandame's face hardened at that. You'll do as I tell ya, boy. I need some more muscle on this mission and you're it, ya hear? He grumbled. Bristling at this treatment, A glared at his father. Why? He asked. Because I said so, was the reply. Aside at that, no, why do you need some more muscle? This made the old man grin with a sadistic glee as he threw an open Kumo bingo book in front of him. The page showed a picture of a man with shoulder-length shaggy blonde hair, bright blue eyes and sharp features. Beneath the picture were various facts about the man, along with the bounty that the numerous hidden shinobi villages had offered for him. A's eyes widened before a grin identical to his father's spread across his features. The Raikage laughed at that. You remember Konoha's yellow flash, right? A raced through the canopy of Konoha's vast forests towards the new origin of the Kyuubi's roars. The beast had appeared in the center of Konoha mere minutes ago, but the destruction it had caused was unbelievable, as bad as any of the times the Hachibi had rampaged through Kumo. He'd already left the Anbu squad behind, activating his lightning armor to increase his Shunshin speed in his haste. The Yondaime Hokage had used his Hiraishin technique to get the fox away from the village, which meant he was now fighting the beast alone. Whilst he and Namikaze were far from friends, he greatly respected the man, and letting him face the Kyuubi alone was suicide. Invisible to all but the eyes of the famed Uchiha, the future Raikage darted through the foliage until he saw over the next ridge the colossal silhouette of the Biju. Then he went faster. As he reached the top of the ridge, the clearing the fox had created came into sight, and there he could make out the image of two people, one evidently the Hokage, facing down the creature. Then, suddenly, as a had been about to rush to their aid, the beast made a new noise of a type he'd heard only one thing make before. A bellowing roar of fury and hate and despair. He watched as the Kyuubi's form distorted, strands of red fur being dragged towards the duo on the ground. The strands grew thicker and more numerous, until the entire beast was dragged into whatever they had used for the ceiling. With a smirk, A watched as the two people embraced, before kneeling down to place something on the ground. They stayed like that for a moment, seeming to stare at the ground, before they fell down with a finality that years of combat told A could mean only one thing. With a look of horror on his face, he shunshined down to them, watching as they came into focus. The ever-cheerful face A had come to expect from numerous meetings over peace treaties, still had the same quiet contentment as always, and the beautiful woman beside him, her face marred by tears, was smiling slightly, smiling whilst death embraced her as he had moments before. And there, in between their protectively curled forms, was a small Hokage, wrapped in blankets, his eyes closed, as he wailed against the night. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Suddenly, As a stood between them, a painful grip snared his right ankle. Looking down, he saw the bright jade eyes of the crimson-haired woman as she glared at him with more strength and power than any warrior had before. His breath caught and a shiver shoot up his spine as he took in her blazing eyes and the mane of flames surrounding her fierce face. She's beautiful, he thought, and then she spoke, her voice resonating in his soul. Protect him. Watched as the strength seemed to leave her. Fresh tears rolled down her face as she turned her head to the boy in the blankets, who he realized now was her son as well. She reached up with her hand to stroke his whiskered cheek, holding her hand there, almost reverently, like this boy was the only Thimji in the world that could ever matter. And as a sob racked her body, a thought he felt her heart break. Here was her little boy, her son, about to be left alone to shoulder the most unholy of burdens. All alone. More sobs followed the first, and as she turned her fierce face back to him, she said it louder. Protect him. A nodded, barely knowing what he was doing. He would do it. Who wouldn't? Who could not? At his nod, her form lost the tension it had held since she'd grabbed him, and turning her face back to the boy she collapsed again, never taking her eyes off him. She stared for the longest time, and watched her stare, entranced, horrified, inspired. At last the cries he long since forgotten stopped and the boy settled down to sleep. She smiled then, a very watery smile, her eyes tearing up again as a crushing sadness overtook her. But she had one more thing to do, one more thing she had to say, the most important thing. I love you, nah nah. Her last breath. The lights in those beautiful eyes of hers finally left, and I could look away again. He looked at the boy wrapped in the blankets sleeping soundly now, between the two who'd loved him their whole lives and a few tears of his own seeped through. He didn't allow himself long to cry though, steeling himself, he knelt and took the boy in his arms. Turning away, he used an ordinary shunshin to reach the trees again, where he found his team. They'd only arrived ahead of the Konoha shinobi because they hadn't been involved in the conflict. Looking at them as they took him in, and more importantly the child in his arms, he answered before they had a chance to question him. He's coming with us. Back to Kumo. After a few seconds when nobody objected he said, let's go. After 32 hours of ceaseless travel, the Anbu team were ready to welcome death with open arms. Not because they hadn't eaten or slept or stopped for the last 32 hours, not even because they'd been forced to shunshin most of the way, and not because of their rigorous Anbu training because that had been no help. No, it was because the hellish monstrosity wrapped in blankets in A's arms hadn't stopped crying for the last 32 hours. The boy apparently was opposed to the shunshin technique on a personal level, and had started wailing barely 10 minutes after they left Konoha. When one of them had pointed out, as they had on numerous occasions, that the boys seemed a tad upset about their mode of transport, they had been rewarded with a glare from their leader, who had responded by increasing both the pace and the volume of the boys' cries. Now, however, as they stood at the gates to Kumogakure, it seemed the boy had cried himself hoarse, and settled down to sleep soundly in A's massive arms. It is a testament, really, to the standard of the Kumo Anbu's discipline that none of them responded to this beyond the massive amounts of facial tics and twitches that they failed to hold back. And of course, the glares that promised bloody retribution that they directed towards the small bundle. Taking their leave of their slave-driving taiko, they went to get some sleep, before getting rubber to blow off some steam. A, however, made his way slowly towards the Raikage building, where he knew, despite the early hour, his father would be waiting. He earned many looks as he walked through the streets. People were quite shocked to see the legendary A carrying a child. A few people stopped to ask about the boy, his origins mostly. A responded without hesitation, he's my brother. To civilians and low-ranking shinobi this meant nothing more than what it seemed. However, to the higher-ranking shinobi this was an obvious code, and they quickly shied away from the boy. A bit back his disgusted rebukes at their elitist behavior that he knew B had been forced to deal with for over a year now, but still, he hated them for it. They clamored to gawk at him when they believed he was just a baby, but once they knew he was a Jinchuriki, the same superior looks of disgust appeared on their faces, begging it to tear them a new one for their oppression of his loved ones. And he loved this boy. Already. He was a part of him, now, as assuredly as if he'd been his own flesh and blood. He was his brother, just as B was, and he wished he could protect him from the hate that would follow him throughout his life. Entering the Raikage building, he told the secretary to inform his father he was coming up. It was a code of theirs. Whilst normally he would just arrive at the door, knock and be let in, if he sent word ahead, it meant he had something major to tell him. Right now his father would be frowning, gnashing his teeth and thinking, "Gah, what's the little bastard got himself into this time, smirked at the thought. He certainly wouldn't be expecting this. "Hey, Dad, guess what? I got you a new son." The old hardass would be overjoyed. Chuckling slightly and being careful not to joist the baby, knocked on the door to the Raikage's office. He received the familiar, eyes open, before he stepped into the room. As his son walked into the room with a child in his arms, the Raikage's mind went blank. He stared agape from the boy to A's smirking face and back to the boy again for a few seconds before he burst out laughing. Great bellows shook his form, like rock falling on rocks, echoing down the halls. Closed the door on the shocked faces of many shinobi, who come to see what had caused this horrifying phenomenon before turning back to the shaking mass that was his father. Grinning now he approached the desk. "Right, shut up now, it's not that funny." The Raikage looked up, his eyes filled with mirth as he struggled to speak around his laughter. "No, haha, no wait, ahhaaaa. No, even you can't up that badly," he said before he succumbed to more guffaws. Sighed and decided to wait this one out. Looking at the somehow still sleeping child in his arms, he smiled, rocking him back and forth whilst his father's roars quieted. Finally his father looked at him, eyes still gleaming, continuing. "Where the did ya get that, then, he asked, before chuckling again. Looked up, a sad, sorrowful look now on his face, which sobered the Raikage up. "He was in Konoha. Konoha. You took a child from Konoha. What the did ya do that fair?" The Sandame shouted. Only laughed at his father's reaction, a humorless laugh. "Wait," he said, "it gets better, he's the Yondaime Hokage's son." At this the Sandame Hokage stood, leaned over his desk to look a right in the eye, potent rage plain on his face as he grumbled, "Low and dangerous, you'd better have a bloody fantastic explanation for why you kidnapped the Yondaime and Hokage's son." Smiled again without humor, and looked down at the boy wrapped in blankets held securely in his arms. He continued to gaze at the boy as he continued, "I'm still not done, you know. He's also," Hira looked his father straight in the eye, "the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and an orphan." The Sandame Raikage was an old man, he'd fought in all three of the great shinobi wars, but even so, that last sentence held a little too much weight for him. The Yondaime Hokage, dead. His son a Jinchuriki. His Jinchuriki son in Kumo, in his son's arms. The Raikage fell back into his chair and for once gestured for it to do the same. "Tell me what happened." So it did, from the Kyuubi's spontaneous appearance in the center of Konohagakure, to the Yondaime's Harai shining it away from the village, to the beast being sealed in the boy now wrapped in blankets, held closely in his arms. Finally, he told him about the boy's mother, her last wish. At this point the boy stirred in his sleep, made a quiet noise, but did not wake. The whole time the Raikage listened intently, adding a question here and there to get a better picture of the events. "Are you sure he's a Jinchuriki then?" he asked when it was done. Slowly unwrapped the blankets to reveal the spiral seal on the boy's abdomen, right above his core. The Raikage sighed and fell back into his chair. "So, Minato Namikaze's dead." There was none of the glee you might expect when a man discovers an old enemy's died. They'd both grown to know Minato since the peace was made, both learned what a charismatic, charming, likable person he was. Looked out the window over Kumogakure, the voice of the unknown Konoha Kunoichi echoing through time, still resonating in his mind. "Protect him. Will you adopt him? He asked his father. The Raikage looked up from his own reflections, before looking at the sleeping boy in A's arms. His face softened then as the boy turned in his sleep. I will, he said. He walked around the desk then, and motioned to take the boy from A. Wrapping the blankets tighter around him, A gave the boy to his father, their father. The Sandaime Raikage smiled down at his newest son as he moved in his sleep. The first hours of his life had been tumultuous, terrifying, yet here he was, sound asleep, not a care in the world. Good, thought the Raikage humorously, doesn't scare easy. Make for a good shinobi he will. Like his fathers. Thinking of Minato brought another question to the Raikage's mind. Turning to face A, he asked, she didn't give a name, did she? The mother. A shook his head. No, she tried to, I think, but all I know is it begins with N. The Raikage beamed at that. N. Was wrong with that. N. Good, strong, simple, easy to remember. N. He looked down at the boy in his arms again. Fits too, with Namikaze I mean. N. N will do just fine for him. A smirked at that, easy to remember, is that where they all come from? Lazy old. Just then the door to the office flew open and in walked a 6-year-old B, shades and a smile in place as always. Pops. Yo, big bro. What's up? No. 6 years later. The village hidden in the clouds while more militaristic than its fellow great nations was in a peaceful mood at the moment. The civilians walked around chatting and gossiping on the things going on in their lives. The shinobi bustled around, the genin doing jobs for the village while one unlucky team was trying with no success to capture the wife of the lightning daimyo's cat Shishi. Apparently she had a sister in the leaf village, which scared many genin teams of ever thinking that the demon cat had a sibling and that she could have kittens with its demonic attitude. The chunin were leaving and returning to the village from their missions or just training, and the junin were teaching the genin are heading for missions. The village hidden in the clouds was happy with the peaceful atmosphere, but all good things come with an end, as there was a roar of N. People turned to the noise and saw a blonde blur run past them at the speeds the yellow flash would have been proud of. The one he was running from was none other the Raikage. When everyone saw him, it took a lot of willpower to not laugh at the cage. The Raikage was a tall and broad man with dark skin and had yellowish hair, but now his hair was bright green and he had clown makeup all over his face. Right now he was chasing the blonde menace known as N, son of the Raikage, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and also known prankster of Kumo. He even had a nickname from his many pranks. He was known as the Orange Shadow because he could even outrun and hide from storm ninjas in bright orange. Said blonde was now currently ducking through the crowds until he felt like he was safe. N looked around and seeing that his father was nowhere in sight, he slowed down to a jog with a big grin on his I got away. Then he heard a shout, elbow slam. N felt an elbow hit him on the head, knocking him to the ground. N looked up and saw with horror his father with a menacing aura around him, though the moment was kind of ruined with his clown makeup and green hair. Hey to san, he managed weakly while rubbing his rather large bump. His father glared at him. N, what gave you the idea to prank me like this? N grinned at him. Well, Ani said that I couldn't prank you because you're a super shinobi and could never be pranked, and I told him that I could, and if I couldn't then me and Ni would stop rapping in front of him for a week, and if I won he would teach me a super cool lightning jutsu. Raizen couldn't help but smile at his son. He was only 6 but already had the chakra reserves of a low chunin, and thanks to the Kyuubi he had ungodly stamina. He was like a sponge when it came to ninjutsu and taijutsu, and already had great skill in kenjutsu, not to mention he had an accelerated healing rate. Thinking of the Kyuubi, Raizen frowned, knowing how the villagers disliked both B and N for what they contain. With B, people kept thinking that one day the Hachibi was going to gain control and go on a rampage like so many hosts before, and the same went for N, but they feared him more since he held the strongest of the Bu in him. Stupid fools, he thought, they should know that they are the ones stopping their beasts from attacking the village. In a way they are heroes but are treated like outcasts. Raizen was a smart man, he wouldn't be Raikage for just pure power. He knew that a Jinchuriki wasn't the demon they contained. it was like a sealing scroll. If you seal a katana in a scroll, does it make the scroll a katana? No, it was just a scroll with a katana inside. The villagers were still a problem though. While they weren't totally nice, they didn't do anything than glare at the boys, since both were the sons of the Raikage and couldn't do anything else or else fear his wrath. So now Ani owes me a jutsu and I'm gonna become the most powerful ninja ever. En yelled excitedly, jerking Ryzen back to the present. Ryzen chuckled at his youngest son. Oh, is that so? Are you going to be going for Raikage when you're big enough to be the size of my arm? En pouted. While he did have a muscular build from his training with his brothers, he was still skinny compared to the rest of them. Both B and A both loved to tease him about it, but it was obvious how much they loved their little brother, or Lil 9 as B says. Ryzen smiled. En and his older brothers were inseparable. En looked up to both of them, though he acts more like B than A. Heck, he and B would sometimes rap together if only to get on A's nerves. En did act like A in some parts. Sometimes he thinks that the door is too much of a hassle to get to and would rather jump through a wall or a window. The first time En did that, I was so happy that someone finally understood why. Wall and window exits are more awesome and just walking through a door is just too troublesome. With B, he and En could be twins if they didn't look the same. Both shared the burden of being a Jinchuriki, but that didn't stop them from being fun. It was both B's and N's dream to have full control of their beasts and become the village protectors and to be treated with respect. They were always smiling, and sometimes with N rapping. A thanked Cammy every day that N didn't rap as much as B did. Right now N and B were working on some sort of project together, and they wouldn't tell anyone what it was, which meant something since they would usually yell out to the heavens about what they were doing. Ryzen looked over their village as the sun set. He couldn't help but look at the beauty of the sun setting in the monstrous mountains around the village. N, let's go home, and you're still not off the hook for doing this to me. Tomorrow you're going to run down the mountain and up again with no chakra, he called. Ah, Dad. N complained. Don't complain, kiddo, would you like to do it twice? That shut N up. N, no, Dad, he stuttered fearfully. After walking up to the top of the mountain where the Raikage's house is. The sunset making the sky a deep crimson red mixed with royal purple, the birds were singing goodbye to the day. All in all, it was peaceful. Then the two males heard a voice. Yo, Lil 9, looks like you won that bet just fine. N grinned. No one can beat the shadow, I won that bet a long time ago. Another voice joined in. Dear Cammy, when will you stop your rapping? N grinned at his older brothers A and B as they walked toward them. At the same time B and N said, never, now stop your yapping. A cry of double elbow slam was heard as the two rappers shot through the air. Ryzen chuckled as he saw his two youngest sons fly away from A's jutsu. Just another day in Kumo. 1. Shishi means lion like Tora means tiger. Later that night, 12 o'clock. Two figures walked through the village hidden in the clouds. A small wind gusted with the bitter cold of the mountains, their cloaks flapped in the breeze. It was hard to see in the dark, but one could see a faint imitation of clouds on the cloak. The two figures continued to walk for several minutes until they stopped by Training Field 77, which was located by a small mountain with a waterfall on the top that would form a pool at the bottom. The smaller of the two spoke to the other one in whisper, "Are you sure this place is good?" The larger one nodded and in a serious voice spoke, "Yes, this is a perfect spot for our plan. No one would suspect this place, it's out of the way, few cloud shinobi come here so we won't be detected." The smaller of the two, which were now identified as males from their voices, spoke to his partner. "Alright, the scroll said that the chamber is in the mountain and the entrance is in the pool, let's hurry, we can't be discovered." The two males then jumped into the water, which was freezing as they were in the mountains. The two edit though, the larger one focused chakra to his palm, making the pool light up airily, allowing them to see through the murky water. After a minute of searching, they found an entrance near the base of the mountain that went straight up. The two swam up until they arrived at a dark cavern. They got out of the pool of water with the larger one still focusing chakra to his palm. They used a simple jutsu to dry themselves off. The chamber was old and clearly hadn't been used in decades. There were cobwebs everywhere and stalagmites and stalactites fused together, in case you don't know that can take centuries depending on the size. As they looked around in interest, the smaller one nudged his friend as they saw a small tunnel in the far corner. The larger one went through it first since he held the light source, the smaller closely following behind him, tensed as though expecting a trap or ambush. The two males walked in silence, both in deep thought of what would happen if the scroll was right and what they had always dreamed of was going to be found in a few minutes. Soon they reached the end of the tunnel and into a small cavern with multiple tunnels leading out of the cavern. The taller one stopped abruptly, causing the smaller one to bump into him. He was about to complain before he saw what made his friend stop. There in front of them stood a pedestal, and on it was a scroll with a snarling demon on it. The two cloaked figures slowly approached the pedestal and just stopped and stared at the scroll that held their future, their dreams, and their hopes. At the same time, the two cloaked figures reached to their hoods that had left their faces in the shadows. At the same time, they took it off, and if anyone else were there, they would have seen their faces. One had sun-colored blonde hair that came down to his chin. He had cheerful bright blue eyes. The most remarkable thing were his 3 whisker marks on each cheek. The other had dark skin and whitish-yellowish hair. The boy wore dark goggles and had a kumo hayate around his head. Both boys were wearing dark gray cloaks with white clouds. "Ha, I bet you thought it was Akatsuki. I'm sorry I had to mess with you guys." The blonde spoke first after minutes of just staring at the scroll before he spoke in a wonderstruck and serious voice that few people would think that a 6-year-old could make. "Bini, do you think this is true? Is that scroll really what could achieve our dream?" "I think so, lil bro." B spoke in a serious voice without even in rap, which showed the seriousness of the situation. As the two approached the scroll, they remembered the day that they had found the cave that held the location to this place, where a scroll could be found to help control your view. Flashback 2 months ago. B and N were running through the woods surrounding the village. They were playing ninja. Well, N was, since B had been made a genin 2 weeks ago. His hayate was worn proudly on his forehead. But B didn't care because he loved to play with his little brother. Since they both were Jinchuriki and brothers, they knew that they should stick together. As fate would happen, N was running from his brother with a grin on his face. He looked around and saw a clearing ahead, so he decided to land there and have a taijutsu battle with his brother. As he landed on the ground, he swore he felt the ground crick under him, but he decided that it was nothing. All of a sudden, B punched him and N flew a few feet away from him. N grinned at B, but before he could speak, he heard a crack. He looked down and watched in horror as the ground beneath him fell away, leaving him hanging in the air for a moment before plummeting. N landed with a thud as his head started to sway. He dimly heard B yelling, but he couldn't hear that much as his head was swimming from the impact. Soon B jumped down carefully and checked to see if his brother needed help. When he knew N would be fine, he looked around and saw a tunnel on the opposite side of the wall. Looking behind him, he saw another tunnel that would have connected to the other tunnel. Now, being naturally curious people, both N and B headed in the tunnel. They walked for several minutes, but with B's fire hand they could see. They soon entered a room. Both couldn't help but gasp at the room. On the walls were tiles of all the tailed beasts, from the 1-tailed raccoon to the 9-tailed fox, but what really interested them was the humans next to each on, and they seemed to be surrounded by a shroud of red chakra, but they seemed to be in control of it. The two boys then noticed a scroll sitting on a pedestal. B walked over to it and started to read it. N noticed how his brother's eyebrows rose and he dropped the scroll in shock. "B, what is it?" N questioned, but B just stood there staring at the scroll that lay on the floor. Rolling his eyes at his brother, he took the scroll and started to read it. Jinchuriki have always been feared for what they contained of ever being released. But now me and my fellow Jinchuriki have found a way to control our view and use its power to the maximum without losing control. Though we ourselves have never had full control, we have still been able to do full view mode for 30 minutes. If you are reading this, then you have found this cave. As you can see from the walls, this shows the 9 Jinchuriki that found a way to control their beasts. We kept how we were able to control them a secret. We didn't want anyone to find out and track us down. If you are reading this, then either I or my brothers or sisters have fallen and our Bu taken and stored in you. In this scroll is a location to the first few steps of control along with different jutsus for each certain Jinchuriki along with other things found from our travels. May Kami bless you and I wish you good luck, my fellow Jinchuriki. Miro Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. N dropped the scroll like B did. Both B and N looked at each other. B, if this is true, we could finally achieve our dream. We could become protectors. N spoke with a hopeful voice. B grinned at his little brother. Lil 9, we're gonna be protectors and everything will turn out fine. N grinned. Yo big bro, we're gonna be badass ninjas with all this. Now let's go tell Pops and Big Bro and everything will be bliss. B frowned as he said, N, we can't tell Dad or Big Bro. What? Why? Think about it, we could do this. N protested. No, N, this sort of thing. This is between Jinchuriki, we can tell Dad and Big Bro later, but right now only you and me should know. What about Yugito, Big Bro? She has the right to know, said N. B frowned. No, lil bro, Yugito don't need to know. We don't even know if this is true. We can't get our hopes up. When we get our Bu under control, we will tell her all we know. N smiled at his brother and he held out his right fist in front of B. We gonna take this class. B smiled and fist bumped his brother, and we're gonna kick some. What? I'm not a good rapper, you try it. After this, they took the scroll and headed home. The boys knew that their Pop and Big Bro thought they were up to something, but they couldn't tell them, at least not yet. Flashback end. B and N walked up to the pedestal and opened the scroll and they both started to read it. Fellow Jinchuriki, if you are reading this, then you are trying to gain complete control of your Bu. To control your Bu, it will take guts, courage, and willpower. Since we can't leave all the scrolls in one place in case someone untrustworthy finds it, I have left a seal at the bottom of the scroll with the locations of the control scrolls and other Jinchuriki jutsu. Only a Jinchuriki can open the seal. Simply use your chakra that contains demon chakra, allowing you to open the seal. This scrolls contains one of the steps to controlling your Bu. I will not lie to you that very few have done this, and this will take many years for you to do, but with patience the full control of your Bu is well worth it. The best way to do this is to have your Bu help you, but I must warn you that your Bu's chakra is so full of hate that if you get more than you can control, it is nearly impossible to stop you from going into a bloodlust. There are 4 levels of Bu chakra. They are initial Jinchuriki state, chakra cloak, version 2, and full Bu. You should first begin with the initial Jinchuriki state where only your eyes will change color. When you have mastered this state, you can start with the Jinchuriki cloak. The more tails you use, the more power it is. There are 2 types of the chakra cloak. If you have a Bu with enough tails, then you can access this. The first of them is version 1, which when your body is just surrounded by your Bu's chakra, but then there is the version 2 cloak. The only way to activate this cloak is when you reach a certain level of tails. If you activate this, then your skin will burn off and you will turn into a mini version of your Bu. The last state is full Bu state. This can only be achieved if you have full control of your Bu, where you will turn into the very Bu you possess. If you have reached this level, few things can stop you. These are the steps you must take to control your Bu. On another note, this cave was specially made to help keep control of your Bu's chakra. If you lose control, it can help control it, but remember that you can lose control outside of this cave. In this cave there is a pool of water that was blessed by the 9 Jinchuriki that gained control of their Bu. This will allow you to meet your Bu faster, since you normally have to be in a life or death situation to meet your Bu. Also, in the tunnels around the cavern, each lead into a room with the jutsu of the Jinchuriki. Also are other techniques found during our travels. May you use your power well, and I hope that you shall succeed. Rito Jinchuriki of the 6 Tails. As they finished reading, they looked around and they saw in the middle of the cavern was a pool with pristine clear water. The pool's surface was smooth, and as they looked in the water they could see their reflection as easily as looking in a mirror. The 2 boys decided to check out the rooms with the just U. B found a tunnel with the number 8 and N found one with 9. B went in his tunnel and soon came to a grayish metal door with the eight-tailed ox. Placing his hand and channeling his chakra, the door opened with a hiss and it swung open. He stepped inside and couldn't help but gap at what he found. He then grinned. Oh yeah yo, this is gonna be good. N watched as B went into his tunnel. He took a deep breath and started to channel chakra into his hand and the room started to glow blue. He started to walk down his tunnel. He soon came to a reddish metal door with the nine-tailed fox. Placing his hand on the face of the nine tails, he channeled his chakra into the door and it swung open. He stepped inside and spun a 360, taking in everything he saw. N grinned. Hell yeah. Meanwhile, at the Raikage Tower, Ryzen was sitting at his deck glaring at the paperwork he had just finished. The second A can become Raikage, I'm gonna burn all this paperwork just for the fun of it. I'd rather have a do this, which is going to be amusing to see since he hates that type of stuff. Oh well, no need to tell him about it until he already has the hat. Ryzen thought with a smirk. Glancing behind him, he saw that it was nighttime and sighed. He leaned back into the chair and started to think about the strength of the village. While we have the least amount of bloodlines out of all of the 5 great nations, we are still strong since we have the 2 most powerful Bu and the 2 tails. Though the countries only know about B and Yugito, I made sure no one would find out about N. If Konoha found out we have the 9-tailed fox, they will know we have the 4th Hokage's son. Thinking of that, I need to tell N soon. He deserves to know. I think I will tell him sometime in the future, maybe after he becomes a genin. Ryzen then remembered what he had planned to do before N had come in the picture. I remember we were going to get a Hyuga and get the Byukugan, but when N came into the picture we decided to not do it since we had already taken one kid from Konoha. If we get caught they could find N, and I'll be damned if they try to take him from me. He is my son no matter what and I'll always be a proud father of him. But we still need to get some bloodlines in Kumo. I'll think about this tomorrow. I'll ask what he thinks. Just as Ryzen stood up from his chair, his assistant Kurai walked in. Excuse me Raikage-sama, but a man is here to see you about joining Kumo. Ryzen groaned. Damn, can't this wait till morning? I'm exhausted. A man in a cloak walked in and took off his hood. The second he saw the man's face, all thought of exhaustion were out of Ryzen's mind as he took in the man's features. The man who was only in his early teens, was tall with dark hair and pale skin. What really stood out were the expressionless onyx eyes that flashed red for a moment. Ryzen sat back down. Itachi Uchiha, what pleasure do I owe you for coming to my village? Just as Ryzen stood up from his chair, his assistant Kurai walked in. Excuse me Raikage-sama, but a man is here to see you about joining Kumo. Rai groaned. Damn, can't this wait till morning? I'm exhausted. A man in a cloak walked in and took off his hood. The second he saw the man's face, all thoughts of exhaustion were out of Ryzen's mind as he took in the man's features. The man who was only in his late teens was tall with dark hair and pale skin. What really stood out was the expressionless onyx eyes that flashed red for a moment. Ryzen sat back down. Itachi Uchiha, what pleasure do I owe you for coming to my village? Itachi Uchiha inspected the man in front of him before sighing. I would like to become a ninja of Kumogakure. He plainly said. Ryzen raised an eyebrow. According to my spies, you are a wanted S-rank missing ninja from Konoha for killing your entire clan. Care to explain that? Itachi took out a scroll and tossed it to the Raikage. The man caught it, and when he finished reading he looked up in shock. You mean to tell me that the Uchiha clan was planning a coup and you were ordered to eliminate your clan by orders of the council? He asked, shocked by these current events. Itachi nodded. Since I couldn't say this to the Leaf Village or else the Uchihas would forever be known as traitors, I asked the Hokage if he could write a scroll containing the information of what happened so I can join another village without being killed on sight. Ryzen nodded. Why do you want to join Kumogakure? Since Konoha is in an alliance with Suna, I couldn't go there without being arrested. I would be killed on sight since I am from Konoha. And Kiri is in a bloodline civil war since I possess the Sharingan. I doubt that would be a smart move for me. Kumo was the only opinion since you are in neither an alliance nor in a civil war. Not to mention I possess a Keki Genkai, which is a world-renowned dojutsu. It is common knowledge that you have the lowest amount of bloodlines out of all the 5 nations. Raizen nodded. It made sense, though he was kinda pissed that Kumo having the less bloodlines was common knowledge for people. But how do I know you aren't a loyal ninja of the leaf? Since you did kill your entire family for the village. The Raikage questioned him suspiciously. Itachi sighed. I was a proud ninja of the leaf, and I did what was best for the leaf by killing my clan. But, they made me kill innocents that had nothing to do with the coup, old men and women, those that didn't even know of the plot, and children. Just little children, and I was ordered to kill them. Itachi lowered his head with a few tears in his eyes. What the leaf made me do was the last breaking point, so no, I am no longer a loyal ninja of the leaf. Itachi's eyes seemed to darken. I didn't kill the children, but someone else did. Who? Raizen asked him. Itachi shook his head. I have a hint, but I doubt you would believe me if I told you, but I will tell you this right now, he is very powerful. Raizen frowned, wondering who would be that powerful and cold-blooded to kill children. He also took note of what Itachi had said earlier and had to agree with him. Being forced to kill one's family, including innocents, can make even the loyalist of men turn traitor. Obviously he would be put under watch until he earned his trust, of course. The Raikage smiled. Very well, Kurai. His assistant came in. Raikage-sama. Raizen smiled at Itachi. We shall continue this tomorrow after I inform the council. And tell them you may stay in a guest house until we have decided what to do. Itachi smiled and bowed to the Raikage. Hi Raikage-sama, I will not disappoint you. He made to leave, but the Raikage wanted to know one more thing. Itachi, wait. I want to know something. What do you view a Jinchuriki as? He asked him seriously. Itachi looked confused at the answer but replied, a Jinchuriki is a holder of the bue inside them, but they are not the bue themselves, merely the container. Why do you ask? Itachi asked him. No reason. The Raikage answered plainly. Itachi nodded and left the room. The Raikage couldn't help but grin. Well, that settles that problem with the Keki Genkai. The Sharingan is a powerful dojutsu, which is why the Uchiha were considered the protectors of Konoha. Now that they're gone, except from one boy, Kumo now owns the Sharingan, and the one who was considered the prodigy of the Uchiha clan in the last 3 generations. Konoha 0, Kumo 1. Glancing at the clock, he saw that it was now 1 in the morning. Well, at least the paperwork is done. Raizen continued smiling until he saw something that made him pale. On the desk was another new pile of papers waiting to be done. No. Back at the cave, both B and N were looking around at the rooms until they heard a yell, no. Both sweat dropped. Looks like Dad got some more paperwork, they both thought. N's pav. Whoa. N couldn't help but think. The room indeed did consider to be a woe. The room's walls were deep crimson orange, much like the Nine-Tails fur. But that wasn't what got his attention. One half of the room had bookshelves covering the walls, and scrolls of all shapes and sizes were crammed in the shelves. On the other side was a small bed and a chest by it. Looking at one of the bookshelves, he saw dozens and dozens of books on different ninjutsu, taijutsu, fuinjutsu, genjutsu, and kenjutsu techniques, along with other things like different types of weapons. N grinned. Ah yeah. He yelled out happily. With B. B had a huge smile on his face as he looked at his Jinchuriki room, or his super awesome bue cave, as he liked to think. The room was just like N's, but instead of the walls being crimson, it was pale gray like the Hachibi's hide. B walked over to the scrolls and noticed a large scroll with gold tint on it. Since he thought it looked cool, he opened it. All Jinchuriki are granted a special ability given to us by our bue. The One-Tails Jinchuriki is given control over sand, the Two-Tails is given control over hellfire, and so on. The Jinchuriki of the 8 tails can use ink release. Ink release would be best to start it by using your mouth. While you can use it on any part of your body, it is easier to start by spitting it out. Once you become good enough to use a sizable amount of ink, move on to the hands. Humara Jinchuriki of the 8 tails. Oh yeah, who's awesome. I knew this wouldn't be so bothersome. B rapped. Yo Beanie, I think we gotta split, before Big Bro and Pops find out and flip, N told him as he walked into B's room, while checking out his room. Mine's cooler, N thought. Both boys put on their cloaks and walked out of the mountain and headed home. If anyone could have seen their faces, they would have noticed how each of them looked like they won the lottery from the size of their smiles. N, get your of the ground and try again. If you fail this again, I'm going to try out my new jutsu Iron Claw on you and you're going to be in a world of pain. A yelled at his little brother, who was lying face first on the ground panting. How weird, both B and N seemed to be less hyper and annoying than normal. Did they stay up last night? What were they doing? Oh come on Ani, do you know how hard you hit? I feel like I'm getting hit by ox. Shut it kid, I fought in a war, of course my hits are hard and I'm not even trying with you. Would you like me to go all out on you little brother? I asked N. N paled and jumped up and jumped on his feet. N, no bro, I'm good, just stay over there, and don't kill me. He murmured at the end. What was that? Did you say go? Okay. Wah. Wait no. As N was punched in the face and flew through the air and into the wall, making an N-sized hole. Ryzen watched on as his eldest son beat the crap out of his youngest son. Well, I gotta admit N is doing okay. I wasn't kidding when he said he fought in the war. With his lightning armor he was as fast as the yellow flash. Right now N was doing physical training with her, as N called them, getting the crap beaten out of me, training, although he would never admit that he liked how his brother took time to train him when he wasn't on a mission. After he did his getting the crap beaten out of me training, he and B would sneak off when A and their dad left for work and go to their favorite training area in their house. The training areas were used for the Raikage and his family. It was a flat rocky field with lots of boulders and the occasional tree. It was perfect for learning destructive jutsu, and in the middle where the rock was smooth, perfect for kenjutsu. Right now B and N were trying to create their own style. Both B and N remembered when A told them of how he had to fight a sword master who could fight with 4 swords on different places of his body. When they heard this, they immediately got interested and told A of how they were going to be able to do that but with more swords. Now A, being the nice brother he was, started to laugh at them and told them how they were too idiotic to even be able to hold 1 sword, much less more. When A said this, both B and N had fire in their eyes and swore that they would do it, and when they could they were going to beat Hissen to the ground. A was impressed with their threat but still laughed since N didn't even reach his arm and B wasn't even to his bicep. Okay B ni, since A Tem doesn't believe we can do this, we gotta do it, and shove his words back in his face. Yeah lil 9, how dare he act all cool and superior when all he does is whine. B rapped. They both continued to think on how they could be able to use more than 2 swords. Hey B, what if we use a shoulder that could work? True, but how are we gonna get a sword up there? B asked him. I don't know, we could throw it in the air or something. N told him. Alright, that's cool you fool. Hey, who you calling a fool? You fool. But you haven't even thought of an idea yet. Shut up you fool, you're so uncool. Oh yeah. Aw, forget it. Hey B, do you think we can get our 6 swords, 3 for each of us, and we can practice until we get it? I think they came in today from old man Aragi's place. Yeah fool, I can, cause I'm the killer B faux show. I am not a fool you fool. 5 minutes after our 2 favorite Jinchuriki are done deciding who is a fool and who isn't. N and B were walking through the village, both thinking of new raps to use in hand motions, causing any foreign people to look at them like they were insane. They ignored the glares they got from some of the civilians and shinobi. Soon they got to their favorite store, Arashi Shinobi Weapons Store. A girl in N's class named Karui, who was one of his few friends, family owned the store. The 2 brothers walked into the store where they immediately went up to the counter and B yelled out. Yo old man, guess who's here? As that's right, oh yeah. Well, look who we have here. How are you boys? You need some kanai? A voice called out from the back room of the store. A dark-skinned man with short red hair came into the boys' view. Aragi was a retired Junin Kenjutsu master. He retired after Karui was born because he wanted to be there when she grew up, Even though it's been 6 years since he went on a mission, that doesn't mean he has lost his skill in kenjutsu. He knew about the boy's idea to wield more than one sword and gave out some advice. He was also one of the few who didn't view the two Jinchuriki as monsters. Hey old man, me and B need 3 swords each. Did you get the type of swords that could go with our style? N asked him. Oh yeah, and they came yesterday. I got you 3 each along with their sheaths. Here they are. Also, here are the blunted guards that you put on so you don't hurt yourself when you throw them in the air and miss the place you're trying to catch it. Aragi then pulled out 6 swords and their sheaths. Just like the anime swords. See, nice and light so you won't be worn down for using them. Cool bro, now we can learn what we wanted to know a long time ago, be rapped. Alright, that will be 6,000 ryo. Also remember that these swords are made out of special metal that can channel your elemental chakra. I thought you'd like that. Wow, thanks old man. Yo big bro, we are gonna be kenjutsu masters. I know you fool. We so cool. Shut up B, I'm not a fool you fool. Aragi watched with amusement as the 2 brothers left the store, still arguing of whom the fool was. Those boys are something else. I have no doubt that they will become great ninja from either their stubbornness or their will to never give up, he thought before turning back to the counter and started to sharpen his katana. Raikage's tower. Raizen was in his office glaring at the paperwork that was mocking him. If looks could kill, the paperwork would have been burned, stabbed, shredded, electrocuted, and buried alive. So to speak, the paperwork would have died badly. A knock at the door disrupted him from his glaring match. Eyes open, he yelled. I came into the room and sat down in the chair in front of him. You needed to see me, Pops. Yes, last night something surprising happened last night. A quirked an eyebrow, defined surprising. Itachi Uchiha came into my office and asked to join Kumogakure. A's eyes widened. What? Are you seriously thinking of letting him join? He killed his whole clan, for God's sake. Raizen reached into his drawer and pulled out the scroll Itachi gave him and tossed it to A. A looked at the scroll with confusion. What's this? Just read it. As A read the scroll, his eyes got wider and wider. A looked at his father. This for real, Pops? Man didn't see that coming. A said. Raizen nodded. I know what you mean, boy, but on the bright side, Kumo now owns the Sharingan. Of course we will have to try to keep this a secret. Good thing that the villagers know to keep their mouths shut on ninja affairs, or people could have found out about N, also with him, B, and Yugito being Jinchuriki. A nodded. Speaking of N, can I start teaching him lightning jutsu? He has already mastered his other studies. The kid, while being an idiot at most things, you can't deny that he will be a feared shinobi when he gets older, plus he already knows some basic just you. I think it's time for lightning. Raizen couldn't help but smile with pride as he thought of how his youngest son was already a pro at certain skills where even other kids couldn't do. Yes, I think it's time for him to learn lighting, plus I believe you owe him a lightning jutsu for winning that bet with you. Raizen's proud smile turned into a frown. And if you ever think of including me in one of N's pranks, well, let's just say I'll only have 2 sons left, Raizen said with a smile that promised pain and a dark aura around him. It didn't help that lightning started to spark around him. A started to sweat a little, even though he was considered a S-class ninja with speeds that rivaled the yellow flash. His father still scared the shit out of him. Oh okay dad, no problem. Alright boy, now there is another reason why I called you in here, Raizen informed his son. Alright, what is it? Do you need me to smash some guy's head in for messing with Kumo? No. Well, there is a mission that is like that which I saved for you, but no, this is different. Before talking to Itachi, I was thinking of our standing with the other nations with bloodlines. We have the lowest amount, and Itachi told me that he came here besides other reasons because it's common knowledge that we have the least bloodlines. A gnashed his teeth in anger at how people thought Kumo having the least amount of bloodlines was common knowledge for other people, making them Kumo look weak. Raizen noticed his son's anger and continued, we need to add more bloodlines into our country. While we do have many strong ninja without bloodlines, it would help our military to gain more, though this does not mean Kumo is weak since Konoha has 0 Jinchuriki. Taki, and Suna have 1 Jinchuriki and Iwa and Kiri have 2 Jinchuriki while Kumo has 3 Jinchuriki and we have the strongest and second strongest Bu along with the Nibi. A smiled, Jinchuriki were way more powerful than a bloodline user and even without their Bu B, N, and Yugito were already very good with the shinobi arts. Alright Pop, so what do you propose we do? Hey, you can't come go in there. Kurai's voice came from behind the door, making both the Raikage and his eldest son look at the door, and as they did so the door slammed open and both N and B came running in, soon followed with an irate Kurai. Raikage-sama, I apologize, I tried to tell them you were in a meeting with a but you know them and they just rushed in here, Kurai apologized to Raizen. Raizen just sighed, it's fine Kurai, just leave them here. Kurai nodded and left the room. Raizen glared at his 2 youngest sons with an annoyed look. Alright boys, why'd you come in here when I'm in a meeting with A? Aw come on Pops, you know us, no matter what you say it's always gonna be a bust. B rapped to his father, making him snort in amusement at his son's particular speech while a gained a tick mark. Yay, we only wanna know what's going on, I don't see how that's so wrong. N rapped. Raizen sighed, knowing that these 2 were his sons and like him they were stubborn as mules and never gave up. Fine, but don't interrupt or you're gonna get it, understand? He told them. The 2 Jinchuriki nodded and sat in the chairs on either side of A. Raizen returned his attention to A, well, since we do need bloodlines and I'm trying to get ideas, so you got any? A had a thoughtful look on his face. Well, we could always try to steal a bloodline from a village, though that could lead to war if we get caught. Raizen nodded. He had already thought of that idea but knew the risks were too high. Yo Pops, instead of trying to steal a bloodline, why not find people who are shunned by their clan and would like a new start, and isn't there a bloodline purge going on in Kiri? I bet lots of bloodline users are either orphaned or are looking for a home, and if we came in and offered them a place where instead of being feared for having a bloodline they have respect, N told them with a thoughtful look on his face. N, that has got to be the stupides. A trailed off when he realized what N was saying. Wow, how did we not think of that Pops? I asked, and both Raizen and I couldn't help but feel embarrassed for having their 6-year-old son, brother, think of a perfect idea to get bloodlines before them. Yay, great idea, and can't believe we didn't think of that, you're a smart one, that's for sure, Raizen told N, making him grin and rub his head sheepishly. Whoa, what about me Pop? B asked with indignation. A looked at his little brother. Yay, what about you? You're the stupidest out of us. Raizen ignored B's indignant yell of, hey, and pondered on what N had told him. Alright, it's settled, I'll send out some teams to infiltrate Kiri to see if we can convince people to join Kumo. I'll also have some teams find the orphan children from the clans since they deserve a good life, Raizen told them. The Raikage turned to his youngest son, N. A and I were talking and we decided that A is going to start to teach you lightning jutsu. N's face lit up. What, really? Awesome, does that mean I can learn you and A's super badass lightning armor? Man, when I learn that I'm gonna be so awesome. Raizen and A laughed. And it took me years to create the lightning armor by scratch, and it's not a jutsu that you master right away. You may learn it when you're older and we deem you ready, but you have to train your best every day using the armor to get to me and your brother's level. The Raikage told him. N crossed his arms with a pout. I bet I could do it. A smiled at his little brother. Don't worry N, I am considered one of the greatest lightning users in the elemental countries and Dad is even better than me. I don't think you'll have much trouble if you listen to us. N looked up and grinned. Alright A ni, I promise I'll be the best apprentice ever. Man A ni, you're so awesome and strong. A puffed out his chest at his little brother's praise. Well, I am an S-rank ninja in Konoha's, Suna's, Kiri's, and Iowa's bingo books, so I think I am pretty strong. B snickered. If that's true, how come you don't got a girlfriend? A glared at B. Shut up B. See, this is why I'm not training you yet, you're too disrespectful. B smirked. Still, you don't got a girlfriend, all of your chances are always gone with the wind, oh yeah. In a flash A appeared next to B and hit his head with his elbow charged with electricity, elbow bolt. Raizen sighed as B flew through the wall and out in the air. Meanwhile N had a tape measure and was measuring the hole he made. Man, only 4 meters a ni you could have done better, N told him. A appeared next to N, elbow bolt, causing N to fly through the wall, making an even bigger hole than B's. Measure that, N. A yelled with his head sticking out the hole as he looked down from the self-made holes in the wall as he watched B and N get up painfully from their encounter with gravity. Ryzen groaned as he looked at the holes in the wall. He glared at A. You do realize how much paperwork I'm going to have to do to fix these holes, right? A shrugged. Hey, they deserved it. For your information, lots of girls have asked me out, but there was a problem with them. Fangirls. A shuddered and gave the sign to ward off evil. Fangirls. Training ground. The next day. A stood in front of the Raikage's training ground waiting for N to show up. He didn't have to wait long until N came out. N wore a black muscle shirt with dark blue Anbu-styled pants with lightning on it. About time you got here, N. Alright, first I want you to do is to channel your chakra into this chakra paper. I want to know what your elemental affinity is. If it's lightning, then this training will be easier. I told him. N nodded and accepted the paper. Pushing his chakra into the paper, he watched as the piece of paper crumbled into a very small ball. Looking up, he saw that his brother's eyes were bulging out of his head as he stared at the chakra paper. Big bro, was that supposed to happen? N asked him, since his brother looked like a fish out of water. A seemed to snap back out of his thoughts. N did again, and he gave him another sheet of paper. N pushed chakra into it and the same results happened. I don't get it, what's the big deal? N questioned his brother. A looked at his brother seriously. It's a big deal since normal lightning users only crinkle their paper, but yours turned into a small ball. That means you have an extremely strong affinity for lighting. Wait, so you mean I'm going to be a really good lightning user? All right. I knew I was awesome. N cheered. Okay, and I wanted you to channel your chakra on your hand. Imagine it sparking and moving like lightning. I told him. N nodded before closing his eyes and concentrating. After a couple of seconds, I watched in surprise as red lightning started to shoot out of N's hand. Amazing to be able to call upon lightning so fast. And what's with the red lightning? Is it a bloodline? No, it can't be. N's real parents didn't have red lightning. A thought in amazement. N opened his eyes and looked at the red lightning moving around his hand in confusion. Yo, what's up with the red lightning? I think it looks pretty frightening. He rapped using eccentric hand motions to emphasize his point. A slapped his hand on his forehead at N's rapping. Thank you, Cammy, for not having him rap every sentence like B. I don't know, kid. I'll ask Dad later, but right now I want you to do this jutsu. It's called lightning clone. I translating, so I'm just going to use English except for jutsu like Chidori and Rasengan. A then showed him the hand seals for the jutsu. N then performed the hand seals and yelled out lightning clone, and with a poof of smoke 10 N's appeared around them with smirks. A grinned. Alright, now attack me. When he said this, the 10 clones surged forward. The first clone to reach him swung his fist at A's face. Dodging the fist, A punched the clone in the stomach. He was surprised to see that the clone didn't dispatch, but when he hit him again, the clone dispatched. The rest of the clones rushed as one and each tried to hit A, but with no success. In a couple more seconds, the rest of the clones were dispelled, leaving A standing in the field, not even breaking a sweat. A smiled at his brother, who was upset that none of his clones had hit his brother, but on the inside his thoughts were confused. I don't get it. One hit is all that's needed to dispatch clones, but all those clones needed at least 2 hits. That shouldn't be possible. Is it because of his lightning affinity? That could be the reason why. Alright, not bad on your first try. N crossed his arms and scowled. Yay, but I didn't even touch you. A ruffled his little brother's hair. Don't fret, N, you couldn't hit me cause I'm too awesome to get hit by 10 clones, but I bet you could have beaten a genin, and not even they can make 10 clones, and you're just starting the academy. Besides, maybe one day you may beat me in a fight. Just remember this, N. Never give up and give it your all. If you follow that, then I have no doubt you can become one of Kumo's strongest ninja. N beamed at A's praise, but it turned back into a scowl at the ending. Now if only you and B would stop being idiots and stop rapping, then people will take you seriously. Hey, rapping is a gift. If you can't accept that, then you need a lift. N rapped. A sweat dropped. What does that even mean? Okay, and since you have such a powerful affinity for lightning, we are going to do elemental training. As A said this, he walked up to one of the trees on the outskirts of the training area and grabbed a handful of leaves. Normally only Junin do this, but since I am a good teacher and your affinity is so strong, we are going to start now. Okay, and I want you try and crinkle this leaf by turning your chakra into lightning. He said this while pushing chakra into one of the leaves, making it crinkle into a small ball. En nodded and grabbed one of the leaves and sat down. Closing his eyes, he focused his chakra and pushed it into the lead. Looking down, he saw the edges of the leaf crinkle a little. En's brow furrowed. Man, this isn't as easy as I thought. After several more tries, the crinkle got a little bigger by a centimeter. Well, it's getting there, he thought happily. 2 hours later, En's eyes were closed in concentration before snapping them open and pumping chakra into the leaf. He watched as the leaf crinkled around the outside, but it wasn't even as crinkled as A's. Man, what am I doing wrong? Okay, En, think, what did you do when A said to call lightning? Imagine your chakra sparking and moving like lightning, so if I do it like this. Doing what he thought with his chakra, he watched as the leaf crinkled, only the very center was still the same. They are like the leaves Naruto uses for wind manipulation, if you're wondering. Yes, I'm doing it. En grinned. Looking up to tell his brother how close he was, his sweat dropped when he saw his brother sleeping at the base of a tree. That jerk, he is supposed to be training me. En then grinned, thinking of a good prank. Very quietly he went to the house and grabbed a bucket full of water and very quietly snuck up to his brother and poured the bucket on A. Woke up with a jolt and saw En laughing on the ground. Gritting his teeth, he stormed over to En, who then realized the danger he was in when he saw A's eyes, which were furious. En held up his hands and backed away slowly with a nervous smile. Hey now bro, it was just a elbow bolt. En was then sent flying across the field. A smiled as he walked over to his brother. Next time En just nudge me, cause if you do that again. A's body started to have lightning surround it, making En pale before nodding, promising he wouldn't do it again. After this happened, En remembered what he wanted to show A. Oh yay, nee, look what I did, I'm almost to the center. En showed A the leaf. A's eyes widened a bit before he grinned at his brother. Wow, En, I'm impressed. It takes most Junin weeks to do that and you already got it down in 2 hours. You're gonna be a good lightning user. Maybe when you're older I'll teach you the lightning armor. En's face brightened at the praise and he grinned when he heard that he could learn the lightning armor when he got older. B and En were nervous, which one could not blame them. Tonight was going to change their lives in future because they would be meeting their beau tonight. They didn't know what to expect, but they were determined to have their beasts help them to become Kumo's strongest protectors. Were they scared? Hell yeah. Not only because they were meeting their beau, but they were also the most powerful beau. The two Jinchuriki walked tensely through the tunnel, both choosing to be silent and reflecting on their thoughts. All too soon they arrived at the pool. You ready, Lil 9? B asked his brother, who nodded. Alright bro, let's get this show on the road, B said. En smiled at his brother and held out his fist. Let's do it. B smiled and fist bumped his brother. The two brothers faced the pool with determined looks on their faces. They walked on the pool and sat in meditative forms. En's mindscape. Drip, drip, drip. En opened his eyes to find himself in some sort of sewer where water would occasionally leak from the rusty pipes above his head. Wow, this place is a dump. En thought. En turned his head quickly when he heard a noise coming from the hallway. Walking down the hallway, he strained his ears to locate the noise. After a couple minutes of wandering, he found himself in a large room with a gigantic cage the size of a mountain. On the cage's doors there was a piece of paper with the kanji for seal on it. En jumped back when he saw two huge crimson eyes open from behind the cage. So this is my jailer. A deep and booming voice said. En's eyes widened. You're the Nine Tails. Laughter echoed across the room. Very astute of you. Of course I am. Who else would be sealed inside you? The Nine Tails asked in amusement. So, why are you here, child? I doubt it's to keep me company. Kyubi asked. En looked at the Kyuubi with a determined look in his eyes. I came to have your help in controlling your power. The large crimson eyes narrowed. Why should I? What makes you think you could control my chakra? Your puny body couldn't even handle a small amount of my chakra. It's happened before. Miro did it. En told him. Kyuubi looked at him. So you read the scroll. Miro lived hundreds of years before you were born, child, so long ago that no one even remembers him, and he was a powerful shinobi, and even then he almost failed. What makes you think you can do the same? En looked Kyuubi in the eyes. Because it's me and my brother's dream to have control of our Bu's chakra and to become Kumo's protectors, and we won't give up no matter what happens. Because me and B never give up, and we never will. He declared. Why do you bother? Many people in Kumo only see you as a monster. Why would you protect them? Why defend the ones who have hurt you? The Kyuubi asked mockingly. En grinned. Because no matter what they think, me and B are gonna show them who we are and how we are going to put our lives on the line to protect them. Even if they won't accept us, we will still be their protectors. HMPH. You are an interesting person, En Yatsuki, but you still haven't told me what I get out of this. What do you want? En asked him. Only two things. I want you to tweak the seal into letting me share your senses. It gets dull just laying in the cage. I want to feel the wind whistling past me, the scents around me, and noises around me. This will also set up a mental connection where I can contact you by using our thoughts, where I can aid you in battle and give advice. En nodded. If that was what it would take to have the Kyuubi help him control his chakra, it was a small price to pay and much to gain. What is your other request? En asked him. The atmosphere in the room changed until En felt like he was on top of one of Kumo's mountains. Killing intent started to fill the room, making En nervous. While the Ki was a small amount, this was the Kyuubi's Ki, but En held strong, not willing to look weak in front of the Nine Tails. I want you to kill a certain person, someone who made a fool out of me and forced me to do his bidding. I will not rest until that man is in my claws while I use his spine as a toothpick. I won't tell you who he is now. When I deem you strong enough, I will tell you. The Nine Tails snarled out, but at the last sentence the ki lessened and the room warmed up again as he spoke normally. En was curious on who this man was that Kyuubi would want him to kill him. He was surprised and nervous that a man could take control of the Nine Tails. He knew that this man was not to be underestimated at all. Okay, you have a deal, Kyuubi. How do I tweak the seal to let you have my senses? En asked, since he had no idea on how to do such a thing. You need to rip off a piece of the seal. What? Do you think I'm stupid, Kyuubi? If I did that, then the whole seal would fall apart and you would be freed. En exclaimed. The Kyuubi sweat dropped at En's reaction. Geez, relax, Kit. Even if you ripped up a piece of the seal, there are so many fail-safes and backups that the piece missing won't even weaken the seal at all. En thought it over. Since he had seen his seal that was located on his stomach, and it did look a lot more complicated than his older brother's iron seal, which was located on his shoulder, and his dad did say his seal was more powerful, but he never said what kind of seal it was or how it was performed. En decided to trust the fox and walked up to the cage where the piece of paper was located. Kyuubi used his powers to lift En up to the seal using the water located in Mindscape. Just as En was about to rip off a piece of the seal, he remembered that he didn't know how much to rip off. Hey, how much should I rip off? 9. I don't want to rip too much off since that won't be very fine, En rapped. The Nine Tails sighed at his host's rap while thinking, this is going to be annoying with his rap. About the size of your thumbnail should do. Be prepared for a little pain since my chakra will flood your system. En nodded and ripped off said amount where red chakra cocooned around him, which brought a burning pain all over his body. He immediately fell of the water platform, twitching in pain. What is this? En thought. The Nine Tails sighed again. Didn't I just tell you, Kit? I said that there would be pain when you ripped off the piece of the seal. En glared at the fox. Well, you could have mentioned that it would hurt a lot. You just said be prepared for a little pain. That was a lot of pain. He yelled. Kyuubi just grinned at the spiky blonde-haired Jinchuriki. Well, you know the saying, no pain no gain. Wherein mumbled something about dumb foxes. Soon enough the pain subsided and Kyubi could feel what was going on outside of the mindscape. Alright kid, since you upheld your side of the bargain, I'll uphold my side. Starting tomorrow night I will be training you in using my chakra and your Jinchuriki abilities. Kyubi told him. En perked up when he heard this and was curious on what his Jinchuriki ability was, since B had told him his abilities but En couldn't find a scroll that told him his. Wow, what are they? En asked excitedly, thinking of all the cool things he could do with his Jinchuriki abilities. Kyubi smirked at his host's enthusiasm. Since I am the strongest Bu, I have two abilities that I pass down to my Jinchuriki. My most powerful one you have already unlocked. Seeing En's confused face, he continued on. Your red lightning came from me. You're my second Jinchuriki to unlock this, since my other two never did, but then again they didn't want to associate themselves with me, so I didn't give it to them. Wait, I thought you haven't been sealed since Miro died, En stated. Kyubi snorted. Kid, I've been sealed in you humans for over 100 years since Miro died. Anyway, your red lightning is much different from regular lightning, since like your brother said you have a much greater control of it, making it much stronger. My lightning is more superior than anyone else's lightning. The lightning is more powerful and more deadly than normal lightning. For example, if you were to use your father's and older brother's lightning armor to your full extent when you master it, you will be more faster than them. It is nearly impossible to pierce the armor since it already has a good defense, and you will have more strength in your attacks. I bet you could surpass them one day, Kyubi told him. En's thoughts were going a million miles per second. This was way cooler than B's ink release and Ox Hide, since this could allow him to become even stronger than his pops and big bro, who were some of the world's strongest ninja. Alright, what's the other one? En asked with a grin. You have a faster regeneration than the other Jinchuriki, which means you will heal even faster than your brother and won't have to worry too much on injuries unless it's fatal or you run out of chakra, but since I'm sealed in you that probably won't happen. Kyubi told him. En couldn't help but grin. Not only does he have a badass strong affinity for lightning where he could surpass his oldest brother and father, but he also had a fast regeneration where the only way he could die in battle was using too much chakra or fatal attacks. Yes, he was very happy right now. Alright, thanks 9. I better go now. I can't let my pops and big bro find out about this yet, plus I got to go check on B to see if he got Hachibi to help him. If he does, then this is a win-win. En said. Kyubi groaned in annoyance. You're not going to stop with the rapping, are you? He asked dryly. En smirked and crossed his arms. No way, bro. That's just the way I roll. Whatever kid, just go and come back tomorrow. I won't go easy on you. I will not have a weak host, got it? Got it. And thanks, Kyubi. En closed his eyes and he faded away from the mindscape back to the real world. Maybe this won't be so bad after all, Kyubi thought to himself before drifting off to sleep. Back in the pool, En opened his eyes to find himself sitting on the pool with his brother by him. Glancing over, he noticed that B still seemed to be in his mindscape. En got worried. What if Hachibi wouldn't help? But he banished those thoughts away. This is big bro, there is no way he could fail, En thought with a small smile. B's mindscape. Whoosh. Crash. Whoosh. Crash. Whoosh. Crash. B opened his eyes and found himself in a dark cave. He could hear waves crashing against rock somewhere in the background. The cave was damp with gritty sand mixed in with dark pebbles. Water leaked from the ceiling, making B wonder if the cave was underwater. Bang. B jerked his head toward the sound that seemed to vibrate around the cave. It sounded as if something large, heavy, and very angry had hit something made of metal. Now any sensible person would have run off in the other direction in fear of whatever was making that noise and wouldn't even dare think of even finding out what was making the noises, much less investigating. But this was B. He took off through the dark tunnels toward the sound, passing through different caves and tunnels, but he seemed to know where he was going. After a couple minutes of running through multiple tunnels, he finally reached a huge cavern that was so tall he couldn't see the top. In front of his way, a giant cage made of iron that was locked by a piece of paper that had the kanji for seal. Walking closer, he tried to make out what was before jumping back when he saw a gigantic fist punch the cage, making a loud ringing noise that vibrated all throughout the cavern. B looked closer and saw the eight-tailed octopus bull in all its glory. Blast this infernal cage. Hachibi punched the cage again, but it held firm. The octopus bull then noticed B standing in front of the cage. Reales me at once. The eight tails roared. B backed up. No thanks, just stay in that cage, and calm down from your rage. B rapped. Hachibi tried to smash B with his fists, but the iron bars were too close together, not letting him reach the rapping Jinchuriki. Since I can't reach you, let's do this the old-fashioned way. Hachibi said with a smirk. Now why don't you come over to this cage and release me? No thanks, that's not a smart thing to do, but I got a thing I need to ask you. B said. Hachibi's eye twitched. What is up with your speaking? Are you an idiot or something? It sounds like crap. B twitched. Boy, it's called rap and it is defiantly not crap. He yelled at the huge beast in front of him. Shut up. Hachibi said. Why are you here, human? I hope it's to release me because I want to get out of here. I came to ask you for help controlling your chakra. B said seriously. Silence reigned in the cave before. Ha 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 ha. That's the funniest thing I've heard in a while. The Hachibi roared in laughter. B glared at him. Hey. Be quiet, yo, before I take off your other horn like my big bad bro. B said, referring to the missing top of one of the Hachibi's horns, which had been cut off by it during the last time the Hachibi had been released. How dare you? The next time I get out of here, I'm going to kill your brother for what he did. It's an insult for a mere human to cut off one of my horns. Hachibi roared at him. The thing is, you're not going to get out like that, since I will never release you no matter what I go through, since I'm going to be Kumo's protector. B yelled out in anger, since he did not like how the Hachibi had threatened to kill his big bro, and if there was one thing in the world that B hated, it was when his family was threatened. B sighed while trying to rein in his emotions. Look, I know you don't like being sealed in me, and quite frankly I don't like having you sealed in me, but we are stuck together, so why not make the most out of it? I read in the scrolls that once you have full control of your Bu's chakra, then you can summon them. Think about it. Instead of waiting in this dark cage trying to break free, why not help me and I can summon you and let you come out once in a while, as long as you don't try to hurt the ones I love. Instead of me just taking all your chakra and leaving you alone, we can be partners and maybe even friends. The rapping Jinchuriki said with complete sincerity, without a hint of dishonesty located anywhere in his words. Complete silence. Hachibi seemed to be in deep thought before he spoke. Why would you offer to do this? All my other hosts spoke of taking my chakra and leaving me to rot in this cage, and none even hinted of trying to be my friend. So I have to ask, why? The Hachibi spoke without a hint of malice, just a curious tone, since he could tell that B was telling the truth. B grinned. Well, like I said, we're stuck together, so why not get along? I don't see what's so wrong. Turning back into the fun-loving and rap-loving B. Still, how do I know you're just lying? And if you do gain full control of my chakra, just leave me in this dark cave. Hachibi asked, but he knew that B was telling the truth. I know what it's like to be hated, but that never stopped me from having a smile on my face. Sure, people can call me demon, but in the end I'll prove to them I'm not a demon but a proud protector and guardian of Kumo, just like my little bro. So I'm going to give you a chance to be friends. You can take it, and if I do get control of your chakra, I can let you out once in a while. Maybe I'll let you smash some things, or you can just stay in this dark and damp cage. B said to the giant octopus. Very well. B looked up at the Bu in shock. What? Not thinking it would be this easy to convince the eight tails to help him, especially with how they had first met. I'm willing to give you a chance. I only ask one thing. It get boring in this, so with your permission I want you to make be able to access your senses. This way I can see, hear, feel, taste whatever you feel. I'll also set up a mental connection where we can talk without you coming in the mindscape. This way I can give advice to you when you're in battle or out of a battle. I can also set this up with your little brother since he has Kyuubi in him and we can talk to them within the contact. I'll also help you with your Jinchuriki abilities. Hachibi spoke with a small smile on his face. B returned the smile. Okay, how do I do that 80? Since I really don't know. B rapped. Hachibi's sweat dropped at his host's speech pattern. Maybe it isn't a good idea to set up a mental connection, the Hachibi thought to himself. Just rip off a piece of the seal the size of your thumbnail. Seeing B's expression, he continued on. Don't worry, it won't even make a dent in the seal, it'll just allow me to set up the contact and senses and that's it. Hachibi promised. B walked up to the seal. Just as he was about to touch the paper, Hachibi spoke up. There will be a little pain since some of my chakra will flood your chakra system, so prepare yourself. The Hachibi warned. B nodded and ripped off said amount of the seal. Immediately red chakra swirled around him, causing him to cry out in pain as he felt the Hachibi's chakra flood his system. After a minute the pain was gone. After he got his breathing under control, he stood up and glared at the Octo Bull. You said there would only be a little pain, B accused. Hachibi smirked. Well, you know the saying, no pain no gain. For a second Hachibi and B swore they heard someone sneeze before hearing a voice saying, someone took my line. Before they decided it was just their imagination. Alright Hachi, I got to go and meet with Lil 9 and see if he is doing fine. B said. Hachibi nodded his head. See ya kid, tomorrow night we will start training. And I won't go easy on you. B smiled. What other kind of training is as good as the hard ones? B closed his eyes and concentrated on leaving his mindscape. All of a sudden the sound of waves disappeared, and when he opened his eyes he found himself back in the cave with his little bro looking at him expectantly. So how did it go, big bro? Did he agree to help you get control? N asked, rapt. B grinned his goofy grin. How do you think Lil 9, me and 80 are going to do? Fine. What about you? N grinned his own goofy grin. It went good, big bro. Me and 9 got it under control. Glad to hear. We should probably leave now, lil bro, we can't let people know about this place yet. B told him as they got up to leave. Hey big bro, N spoke as they jumped out of the waterfall before heading off in the direction of home. When can we tell Yugito about what we found? He asked, referring to the other Jinchuriki in Kumo. Yugito was N's age and was the great-grand niece of the second Raikage. She used to live with her mother outside of Kumo when she was little after her dad had died during a mission, but a year ago her mother died from an illness, leaving her alone. The boy's dad brought her to Kumo and had her live with him and his family in their family compound. She was the Jinchuriki of the Nibi. N and B were her closest friends since most people didn't want to talk to her since she was a Jinchuriki. Both B and N knew that the glares and murmurs affected her more than them, and both tried their hardest along with their dad and A to make her feel accepted. We will bro, but let's tell her when we get our one-tailed state mastered, since she will have to use half of the Nibi's chakra to use a cloak, and I don't know if it will affect her more than it will than us. He explained. N nodded slowly, seeing the wisdom in that, but frowned. I don't like hiding things from her, bro. B grinned at his little brother. Oh Lil 9, you got the hots from little miss too. I can see the sparks flyin' from you. He teased while N turned a bright shade of red. Shut up B, I don't like her like that, can't you see? N complained, hoping B would stop teasing him, but then again this was B and he didn't give up easily. You're turning pretty red, I wonder what stuff you're thinking in your head. B teased him. N just muttered under his breath about big brothers sticking their noses in other people's business. Soon enough the two rapping Jinchuriki arrived at their home. As they entered the kitchen they noticed that the clock said 4 a.m. Man, I'm beat, the two boys thought. As the two Jinchuriki went off into their rooms and laid down exhausted before they fell asleep, they couldn't help but give one more content smile. Tonight had gone perfectly. They had their Bu helping them become powerful and gained their friendship. Their greatest dream could now become a reality. Tonight was the night where their journey to become legends began. A black blur sped through the streets of Kumogakure heading for the Ninja Academy. Once the academy was in sight, the blur slowed down to show a tall, muscular blonde kid. En had changed a lot over the years. Thanks to his father and brother's training, he was very strong. The past 6 years had been grueling on En, but in the end it was worth it. Like Kyuubi had said, with his Crimson Lightning he had very high control over the element. He was so far in his training that his father and older brother had taught him their famous lightning release armor. While he was nowhere near his father's and brother's speed, strength, and skill, it didn't mean he wasn't strong. Without his armor and with his weights on, he was still at least Chunin level in speed, and without his weights and lightning armor he was around Junin speed, which was something he took great pride in. Another thing he took pride in was his skill in Kenjutsu. He and B had done the impossible and had made their own Kenjutsu style where they used 7 swords located on various body parts, and when they used all their swords few could keep up with their speed and unpredictably. En couldn't help but chuckle when he and B had shown their new Kenjutsu style. He had looked like they had fallen from the sky. His skill in ninjutsu was off the charts thanks to his family and the scrolls he found in the Jinchuriki cave. His genjutsu skill was still ish, but thanks to being friends with the Kyuubi he could get out of genjutsu easily enough by having Kyuubi disrupt his chakra. Another major thing that had happened that only 2 other people and 3 Bu knew about was his training in Kyuubi's chakra. Right now he could go up to 3 tails without losing control. Thanks to B and Yugito he didn't have to worry about attacking anyone since the cave was off from the village and the cave helped hide the chakra, making it near impossible unless you were a highly skilled sensor to notice it, and if either of the Jinchuriki did get out of control then the other 2 would calm them down. As he walked to the classroom he stopped in front of a mirror and looked at himself over. En was 5 feet 2, a little on the tall side for boys his age. His bright blonde hair was short and spiked upwards. He had a muscular build thanks to his physical training with A and his father. Although he was only 12 you could still see the muscles under his shirt. En wore a white jacket with red lightning moving around the jacket and a hoodie on the back. He wore black shinobi pants and red ninja sandals. Around his neck were a pair of shades not unlike his brother's, but instead of them being brown they were crimson. He had 7 swords sheathed on his back with their red hilts sticking out like anime. On his arms he had 2 gold metal wrist guards not unlike his older brother A. A white Kumo forehead protector was worn proudly on his forehead. If you're done preening yourself you should get to class so you can get your genin team and sensei. A familiar voice spoke in his head. Hey Q, you excited? En asked his Bu. I should be the one asking this to you. You have been waiting for this for a while. Kyuubi told him. Yeah, I know, I'm so pumped now, I hope I just don't have a team that I'll get dumped. En rapped in his head. A sigh could be heard in his head. What does that even mean, Kit? Kyuubi asked him. En looked down. What if I get a team and sensei how only see me as the demon brat? En asked in a worried voice. Don't worry kid, I don't think your father would do that, and even if that does happen there isn't that much they can do since you're already at Chunin level even if you only graduated yesterday. Kyuubi told him. En grinned. Yeah, you're right Q, I shouldn't have to worry about stuff like that. During the time En had been talking to Kyuubi he had arrived at his classroom. En stepped inside the room and went over to the back right corner of the room where 4 other people were sitting and just talking. With his normal goofy smile in place he walked up to them. Hey yo, what's up yano? He asked using hand signs to help his rap look cooler. The 4 people just sighed at their friend's greeting. There were 3 girls and 1 boy. One was a girl with pale skin and light blonde hair. Even though she was only 12 she already had borderline B-sized S, which had caught the attention of many of the guys in the class. She wore a black V-neck t-shirt that showed off some of her S and had a tanto on her back. Her name was Samui. The second girl was a redhead with dark skin. She had amber eyes and gold earrings. Her name was Karui, whose dad was Aragi, who had supplied N and B with their swords. She wore a white jacket with a hoodie in the back with dark shinobi pants and had a sword on her back. She wore a white forehead protector like a bandana. The third girl was someone who N could never help but blush whenever he saw her. She was fair-skinned and had platinum blonde hair in a ponytail tied with bandages. She wore a tight purple blouse with black pants and a katana on her back. While her S were not as large as Samui's, they were at least a nearing B. Her eyes were sky blue with a cat-like pupil. Her name was Yugito Ni, a fellow Jinchuriki. The boy was dark-skinned like Karui with pure white hair that spiked up much like ends. He was eating on a lollipop with a thoughtful expression on his face as though he was thinking deeply on something. He had a black forehead protector on his forehead. He wore a black jacket with a hoodie on the back and black shinobi pants and had a sword on his back. His name was Omoi. "And why do always have to use your rap?" asked an irritated Karui. "Ah, come on Karui, why do you have to be so mean?" En pouted. "Well, maybe if you stopped rapping whenever you greet us, she wouldn't have to be mean," Yugito suggested. En just sat in the chair mumbling about people who didn't appreciate his rap. "So guys, who do you think we will have as teammates?" Samui asked them. En got in a thinking pose. "Well, I'm guessing you and Omoi will be on a team since your families are always on the same team. As for me, I will probably have Yugito-chan on my team." "What about senseis?" Karui asked him since he was the son of the Raikage and would probably know more than them. "I don't know. If I could, I would want one of my big bros teammates C or Darui." En told them before he started to grin. "I think B is going to get a team this year," he informed them. Omoi perked up at this. "Really? That's awesome. B is one of the best Junin in Kumo and is one of our best Kenjutsu users thanks to his skill with his 7 blades. Hey, I can do it too. I just haven't used it in a fight yet." En complained. In the past 6 years, B had risen through the ranks fast. He made Chunin at 12 and Junin at 15. He had been asked to join Storm a year ago, but he said he wanted to become a sensei first. Although there hadn't been much of a change in behavior from the villagers regarding the Jinchuriki, but some of the shinobi had gained an amount of respect for B thanks to his skill. While it didn't change much with the villagers, it gave the boys hope that they could become respected. Yugito sighed. "I just hope whoever his team is, he won't rap, otherwise it would be nearly impossible to understand what he is saying." En glared at her even though there was no hostility in his eyes. "Hey, rap is fine. If you have a problem, get in the back of the line," he rapped, making his friends sigh again at his speech. En couldn't help but fume since no one really liked rap besides him and his big brother, but on the inside he couldn't help but smile at his friends. When he began the academy, he and Yugito had been nervous of how they would be accepted, since all the kids knew they were Jinchuriki and if they would have any friends besides each other. In the beginning it seemed like that since most didn't want to be with the demon kids. But they had gotten lucky. Omoi's father was very close to En's father and as such didn't think of En, Yugito, or B as monsters, something he had told his clan repeatedly. They were one of the few clans that didn't hate the trio of Jinchuriki. Samui didn't see anything that screamed demon at her, and after talking to both En and Yugito and saw Yugito's kind attitude along with En's goofy one, she too had become fast friends with the 2 blonde Jinchurik. Karui didn't fear or hate En or Yugito because her father Aragi had told her that she shouldn't listen to what the villagers or anyone else say about the trio and to be friends with them, and after meeting them she became fast friends with them. B, A, and Ryzen had been happy that they had found friends their own age. B had often helped the kids with training whenever he was off of missions with his team, which consisted of a teen named Atsui who was Samui's older brother and like his sister didn't see anything that yelled demon at B and had become best friends with him, and Mabui who thought the same as Atsui, and had often teased B that he had a crush on her, and seeing him turn red he knew it was true. "That is true since it is hard to understand what the two of you are saying sometimes," En Karui said. Before En could reply, probably in rap just to annoy her, their homeroom teacher walked in with a clipboard. "All right, shut up and sit down." The instructor yelled and waited for the kids to shut up. "Today is the day you will begin your careers as a ninja of Kumo. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you getting this far. From now on we are no longer sensei and student but brothers in arms. Now I will call off the names of your teammates and sensei," the instructor said before listing off the names. After listening for around 5 minutes, En started to doze off but straightened up when he heard, "Team 8 will consist of Omoi, Karui, and Samui. your sensei is Karabi, 1 Yatsuki. N gave said people a thumbs up. The 3 genin looked happy to get B as a sensei. The instructor continued on with his listing. Team 9 will consist of Yugito ni, N Yatsuki, and Ko Abuyoki. Your sensei is Darui. N smiled at Yugito, who smiled back before he looked around for Ko. His smile faded a little when he found Ko. Ko was 5 feet with brown spiky hair and deep green eyes. He wore dark red Anbu armor with a black shirt and pants underneath. His clan was made up of most of the village's assassins and hunter nin. While Ko didn't outright hate N and Yugito, he didn't like them since most of the villagers and shinobi had said they were Jinchuriki and how they were demons. Although N was happy that he got one of the lesser haters, since Ko never joined in on the other people's taunting. N knew it would take some convincing for him to accept them as people. N just hoped they could become friends with Ko. N turned back his attention to the instructor, who had finished up the listing and was now rolling up the scroll. You will now wait for your sensei to come and pick you up. Serve your country well, he said before leaving the room. The next few minutes different senseis came and took their teams to their training fields. Soon only Team 8 and 9 were left. Ah, where is B sensei? Karui complained. What if he was attacked on his way here and gets injured and has to go to the hospital, where he will be unable to train us and we will die on our first mission outside the village? Omoi exclaimed before Karui hit him on the head. Be quiet, Omoi Baka, no one wants to hear your theories, Karui said. Knowing Big Bro, he is probably planning his entrance and how he is going to rap, N said with a smile. Before anyone could respond to N, the door slammed open, revealing a giant man with sunglasses sauntering in with a smile in place as always. B had changed a lot over the last 6 years. He was as tall as A and had the same build as him. He still wore his brown sunglasses. His whitish blonde hair was in his braids and combed back, with his height placed like a bandana and a goatee. He also had a blue tattoo of a bull's horn on his left cheek, which in N's opinion was pretty badass. He didn't wear a shirt, only a white Kumo Junin jacket, and you could see where the iron armor seal was located on his shoulder. B also had 7 swords with red hilts sheathed like N. He also had a long, red rope belt tied around his waist, the standard Kumo hand and shin guards, shinobi sandals, and a white scarf around his neck, like anime, but he looks younger. Yo yo yo. Waz up Team 8. When I'm done with you, y'all gonna be great. B rapped. Yo Big Bro. N greeted his brother, moving his fist in front of him for a fist bump, which B happily returned. Yo Lil 9 is see you got Darui as a sensei, that's pretty cool, ya fool. B said. N gained a tick mark. I'm not a fool, ya fool. You are fool. Ya fool. Shut up, Big Bro. Yugito sighed as she watched the 2 brothers bicker among themselves like children. Can B really be an elite Junin? Not to mention N is strong too, but sometimes they act like children, Yugito thought to herself. Ah, don't say that, kitten, you know how those 2 are. Why fight what you can't change? A familiar mature female voice spoke in her head. Oh hey Nibi, Yugito thought to her view. So kitten excited to be on the same team as your boyfriend? Nibi asked her. Yugito blushed at Nibi's words but managed to hide it before anyone asked why she was blushing. Nibi. For the last time, N-kun is not my boyfriend, she said. Nibi started to giggle. Whatever you say, kitten. I'm just saying, look at how cute he is. When he gets older he will be a hunk. You should tell him you want to talk to him outside, and once you pass a closet push him inside so you can ride his, Nibi. Yugito yelled, mentally failing to suppress the blush at her perverted demon's words. It was so unfair. Why out of all the 9 view did she get the most perverted? I'm offended, kitten, that you would even suspect me of being a pervert, Nibi said in mock hurt. You are one. While this was going on, N noticed Yugito's blush and stepped forward until he was right in front of her with their noses nearly touching and put his hand on her forehead. Are you okay, Yugito-chan? You're really red, but you don't have a fever, so why are you red? He asked, confused, not getting why Yugito got even more red when he touched her and didn't notice they were so close their noses were almost touching. Yes, I'm fine, N-kun, Yugito said, trying to lessen her blush. B watched the two other Jinchuriki act around each other with a grin. Ah yeah, Lil Miss 2 got the hots for Lil 9, but he doesn't know what is going on. Love can be so cruel, V thought in bad rap. When will you stop that garbage you call rap? Hachibi moaned from his mindscape. Hachibi had started to seriously regret setting up a mental contact with B. How was he supposed to know he even rapped in his thoughts? Ah come on Hachi, I gotta be me, you see, B rapped back. Hachibi banged his head against the cage. Why couldn't your father have sealed me inside a non-rapping human? Hachibi complained. Ah don't be so mean Hachi, B said to his Bu. Over the past 6 years B had gotten farther ahead in using his Bu's chakra than En and Yugito. He mastered the 4-tailed state and was starting to do the 5-tailed state. It had taken a lot of work to not go in a version 2 since no one could be able to stop him if he lost control. En had wanted to get farther in using his Bu chakra too, but had decided not to since he was younger than B and didn't have as much control. Alright Team B. We gonna go to training field 8 ya see. So let's go. Oh yeah, we. B yelled before jumping out the window, soon followed by his new students, albeit they decided to use the door than the window. En just shook his head in amusement at his brother's parting before turning back to the door, where a fairly tall dark-skinned man walked in. Darui had white shaggy hair, which covered his left eye, and wore a high-collared, sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on the wrists, and a white one-strap Kumo flak jacket. He seemed to have a lazy look to him. Alright, you guys are Team 9. Hopefully this won't be dull, Darui told them. Come to training field 9 inches, and with that he left. Yugito and En looked at each other before nodding and headed out of the door with Ko behind them to training field 9, where Darui was waiting for them. Hey Darui, what's up? En asked him. Darui smiled at the exuberant Jinchuriki. I'm doing fine En. Darui was A's teammate along with C, who learned under En's father the Raikage. He had the storm release Kekkei Genkei and was able to use black lightning like the Raikage. Both him and C didn't see the trio of Jinchuriki as monsters thanks to being teammates with their older brother and taught by their father. Everyone in Kumo knew how protective A was of his little brothers, if anyone called his little brothers demon or anything of the like in front of him. Well, let's just say the last guy who did is still in a hospital eating food through a straw. Darui and C had helped A and the Raikage train B and N and had come to see them as little brothers. Darui had taken great interest in N's Crimson Lightning since he too had a different type of lightning and had been impressed to see that his lightning was equal or greater than his Black Lightning if he mastered it. C had also taken an interest in N, Yugito and B since both had the skill to be sensors. Although C didn't know that was ability given by their Bu. N seemed to have the best range so far, which had a range of 2 kilometers, 1.24274 miles. With Yugito it was 1.5 kilometers, and B at 1 kilometer, which N and Yugito liked to tease him that he had the lowest range of them, much to B's irritation. As the newly formed Team 9 gathered around their sensei, Darui spoke again. Okay, let's begin introductions. I'll go first. My name is Darui, my likes are onigiri, training, and my friends. My dislikes are people who think of people as monsters. He glanced at En and Yugito. And sour food. My hobbies are kenjutsu and training. My dreams for the future are to continue serving the Raikage and Kumo, and to make you guys some of the most powerful ninja Kumo has ever had. He glanced over at Yugito. Alright, you go Yugito. Yugito smiled. My name is Yugito ni, my likes are my friends, the color purple, sushi, and training. My dislikes are people who see En-kun, B, and I as demons, people who try to hurt my friends, and the time it takes to make sushi. My hobbies are training, reading, and spending time with my friends. My dream for the future is to become a powerful protector of Kumo and to prove to the people of Kumo that I am not a demon. Darui nodded and turned to En. Alright, you next En. En grinned. My name is En Yatsuki. My likes are my big brothers and my pops the Raikage, Yugito-chan, he said looking at Darui and hence did not see Yugito blush. I also like ramen and rap. I dislike people who see Yugito-chan, B ni, or I as monsters, the 3 minutes it takes to make ramen, and people who dislike my rap. My hobbies are training, making new raps with my big brother B, and pranks. My dreams for the future is to become a powerful protector of Kumo, to master my dad and big bro's lightning release armor, to become a successful rapper, and to become Raikage. Darui turned to Ko, and last but not least Ko. Ko glanced around before shrugging. My name is Ko Abuyoki, my likes are my family, friends, and training. I dislike people who threaten my family. My hobbies are spending time with my family and friends. My dream for the future is to become a respectable clan head. Ko said. Alright, tomorrow we will start doing missions. You 3 are the best of the class and I have high hopes for you guys. We will meet here again at 8 to do training. Now you can go home. I look forward to teaching you. Right now I have to report to the Raikage about our team. Darui told them before walking off. En nudged Yugito to follow him as they got up to leave before calling over his shoulder. Hey Ko, me and Yugito-chan are gonna get something to eat to celebrate becoming ninja with some of our friends, you wanna come? It'd do good for us to get to know each other. En offered. No thanks En-san, Ko said bluntly and walked away. Yugito sighed. I guess he is one of the haters, she said in a quiet voice. Don't worry Yugito-chan, we'll get him to open up to us. Remember we thought of this before we started the academy and we got Omoi, Karui, and Samui to not see us as monsters, what's not to say about Ko? We just got to be patient. En said optimistically before grabbing her hand and started to drag her toward their favorite place to eat, once again not noticing the blush on Yugito's face. They soon arrived at a small shop located in one of the many mountains of Kumo. The inside of the cave had a homely feeling and En and Yugito could smell food cooking, making their mouths water. Inside, the newly formed Team B sat at a booth where B was trying to convince them that rapping was so much cooler than normal talking. I'm just saying yo, rapping is definitely the way to go. Rap is the greatest of arts and it doesn't need to be dissed by you tarts. B rapped using eccentric hand signs to help prove his point. Shut up B-sensei. Karui yelled, trying to stop her new sensei from rapping any more than necessary. Ah, come on Karui, I agree with big bro, rap is defiantly the way to go. En said as he and Yugito joined them at their booth. Yo Lil 9 and Little Miss 2. What's up ya fools? B greeted. I'm not a fool ya mgh. En said before his mouth was covered by Yugito's hand. En-kun, don't even think of finishing that sentence because every time this happens you and B do it for over a half hour and I doubt the others want to hear that, don't you agree? Yugito said with a smile that pretty much said, agree or else. En paled. Hi Yugito-chan. Karui, Omoi, and Samui sighed in relief that En and B weren't going into, who was the fool, rants. Which caused said people to glare at them. So how is it of having big bro as a sensei? En asked, trying to change the subject so not to endure the wrath of Yugito. It's cool though, like we said earlier at the academy it can be hard to understand what he is saying. Samui said. I'm hurt what with you saying that in a school, why do my students have to be so cruel? B cried. Yugito sent Team B a sympathetic look. Don't worry, you'll learn to understand him like I do since I'm around him and En-kun so much. Yugito paused before going pale, although I don't think that's good if I can understand them. En and B both had anime tears, mumbling about people hating their art, much to the amusement of the newly made genin. As En and B were still brooding, a small old lady walked wearing a green apron and a wooden spoon in her hand over to their table. She had a kind face with wrinkles and gray hair tied in a ponytail. Hello, it's nice to see you guys again, she said with a smile. Hey Granny Kicho. En greeted with a raised hand before he was whacked on the head with Kicho's wooden spoon. En, what did I saw about calling me old? Kicho said with a small glare while brandishing her spoon, which caused En to shrink back in his chair in fear of getting whacked again by her spoon. Hey, sorry Kicho, En said nervously. Kicho just shook her head in amusement. I'm guessing you'll have what you 3 always have, a couple plates of fired beef, 10 bowls of ramen, and 5 plates of sushi. She asked B, N, and Yugito, who all nodded eagerly. Kicho was another of the few people in Kumo who didn't hold any hate for the Jinchuriki trio. She didn't see anything that said demon to them. It also helped that the trio ate with the appetite of a small army, so she was getting good business from them. She liked B and N's goofy attitude and Yugito's kind attitude. She saw them as grandchildren, and in turn they saw her as a grandmother figure. Alright, what will you other three have? She asked Karui, Samui, and Omoi. I'll have the roasted duck, but what if I overeat and I find out there is a deadly disease going on that is in ducks, where I then have to go to the hospital and a pretty nurse will see that I only have a few days to live and is heartbroken and swears to never love again. Omoi said to himself before he was bonked on the head by Karui. Be quiet, Omoi Baka, you overthink things. Karui said. She turned to Kicho. The Baka will have the roasted duck and I'll have the tuna. Samui pursed through the menu. I'll have some onigiri. Kicho nodded and went to make their food. There was a comfortable silence before Omoi noticed something. Hey N Yugito, where is Ko and Darui? I thought we agreed for both of our teams to be here. Omoi said. Darui-sensei had to go report in our team to the Raikage, though now that I think about it, why are you here? B, shouldn't you be at your dad's office reporting in your team? Yugito asked B. Oh, forgot about that, he. Ah well, I'll report into Pops later. B said, making the genin face vault at his words except for N, who was laughing. Haha man bro, dad's gonna be pissed at you if you don't report in, since he can't leave the office until all the Junin report in their teams. N said, still laughing. B waved away N's warning. I'll be fine, Pops won't care. At which N snorted, since knowing his father he will most likely punish B by whopping his in their next training session, which N and A will happily watch. Yay, well, back to your question, Omoi. Yay, Darui-sensei went to go report to dad. We told Ko about our teams meeting each other, but he didn't want to. N said, looking down. I'm not really surprised he is one of the haters, Yugito sighed. Omoi, Karui, and Samui saw the sad looks on their faces and immediately got concerned for their friends, while B had an unreadable expression on his face, since he experienced the same thing when he went to the academy, where he only had Atsui and Mabui and had luckily gotten on a team with them. Don't worry N, I know you and Yugito will get to him. He'll see you for who you truly are, a good friend in person. Samui encouraged, where both Omoi and Karui nodded at her words. N and Yugito smiled at their friend's words. Thanks Samui, I bet we will. We just have to be patient and soon we'll get to him, though I think we should stop talking about such things though, since we're kinda being a buzzkill. N said, where all the people minus B sighed at N's rap but were glad to see him get out of his funk. That's a pretty good rhyme, Lil 9. B said. N grinned at his big brother. I know it, cause I'm awesome. I don't get why people think rapping is so bothersome. B nodded at his little brother's rap before taking out a notebook where he kept all his rhymes. That's a good one, lil bro. Which N nodded and took out his own notebook that B had given him, and soon the two rapping brothers were making up new raps and writing them down in their notebooks for future references. The new genin could only smile at the two brothers rapping. The mood for the rest of the night was considerably lighter as they talked about stuff they were learning and laughed at N's pranks on his older brother A and their father. All in all, it was a good night. 1 week later. Come on Pops, I don't wanna go on another D rank. I'm too awesome to do these chores. N complained to his father, who sighed at his youngest son's complaining. Over the past week, Team Darui had done the bane of all missions, D rank. They had been training hard and Darui had tried to teach the team teamwork, but it had only half worked. N and Yugito's teamwork was flawless. They each covered each other's weaknesses, with N the best at close combat and Yugito providing support but still proving to be a deadly enemy in close combat too when N needed backup. It was with Ko that they had trouble with, since he didn't really want anything to do with the two blonde Jinchuriki. Calm down boy. Fine, I'll let you go on something other than AD rank, since I know you can hold your own in a fight. The Raikage said, to which N grinned his goofy grin. Ryzen looked at the C ranks missions before finding one that would suit the team. Alright, I have AC rank for border patrol. You will be patrolling this small stretch near Kusagaker. Few people enter this place, so there shouldn't be too much of a problem. Rai said since he wasn't worried about the team's safety since En and Yugito were at least Chunin strength and Darui was one of his most powerful shinobi. Alright, let's go. En yelled before jumping over his father and smashed through the wall, leaving a decent-sized hole. Raizen's eye twitched as he stood up and walked over to the hole his son had made before yelling out, "En, get your back in here. Do you know how much paperwork you and make by smashing through walls? Just use the damn door." Darui sighed. Well, at least things aren't as dull as I thought they would be. The rest of Team Darui left to follow their more eccentric team member, though they decided to use the door. Border of Kumo near Kusagakur. Team Darui were tree hopping along the border of Kumo. Both En and Yugito were taking turns sensing for any chakra signatures. So far nothing had happened out of the ordinary. All right team, let's take a break and eat, Darui said. As the team was eating, Yugito decided to try and start a conversation with Ko. "So Ko, what's your family like?" she asked him. Ko glared at her. "Why should I tell you?" he asked coldly. En glared at him. "She was just asking a question, bro." Ko glared at En. "I don't need to explain myself to you, En-san." En got up and put a hand on one of his swords. "Look dude, I know you don't like us, but we are trying to be nice to you, so stop being a jerk," he said, where Ko put his hand on his tanto located on his back. The two looked about they were going to come to blows when Darui decided to intervene. "Enough. En, you two are teammates, you shouldn't be fighting each other." And Ko, "I know what people say about En, Yugito, and B, but you shouldn't listen to them, they are just lies." Ko just snorted and turned away. En started to walk away. "I'm going to go on, I need to cool my head." And jumped up in the trees and continued on to where they were patrolling. Darui sighed. This is going to be a pawn, he thought. With En continued tree hopping, trying to keep a hold on his anger. "Stupid Ko, why can't people not see us as monsters?" "Don't worry kid, you'll get to him," Kyubi said in his mind. "Just be patient." "Yeah, you're right, but still it pisses me off. I just don't like it when people are mean to Yugito-chan." "Of course kid, it's perfectly normal to be defensive of your girlfriend." When En heard this, he almost lost his footing and nearly fell out of the tree he landed in. "Nani? She isn't my girlfriend. You could have fooled me. She is pretty hot, why wouldn't you want to date her?" "Shut up," En yelled in his mind, but he could have sworn he could hear the Kyubi's laughter in the back of his mind. En started to use his sensor ability to see if anyone had crossed the border and immediately noticed a chakra signature at least low Chunin level. He started to head in the direction of the source. He stopped on a tree as he spotted the signature. Even though he was high up in the trees, being a Jinchuriki had given him higher senses and could make out the man through the leaves. En yelled out, "Stop. You are trespassing on Kumo territory. State your business for being here or prepare for an whooping." The man stopped before he yelled out, "I'd like to see you try. Come out, you coward. My name is Mizuki and you don't scare me at all." En dropped down to the ground in front of the person and saw what he looked like. Mizuki had white, slightly bluish hair that reached his shoulders and wore a Konoha Chunin vest. He also took notice of the slashed Konoha forehead protector, indicating he was a missing nin, and there was also a rather large scroll placed on his back. The man in front of him scoffed, "You're just a kid. Why don't you go on back to your mama and leave this ninja stuff for the adults, okay?" En glared at the man. "Hey, shut up. I may be a kid, but I can still kick your, so don't diss me or I'll break your bones like glass." "What the hell are you saying? Are you an idiot or something?" Mizuki asked. En's eye twitched. "It's called rap." Mizuki smirked. "Well, it sounds like crap," he said smugly. En's eyes narrowed. All of a sudden he was surrounded in his lightning armor, charged with 15% of his power, crimson lightning crackling around him, directing all of his ki at the man who had taken a step backward in fear. "You can insult me and try to wound my pride, but there is something that I will never let you insult, and that is my rap." En roared before charging forward. Mizuki only had time to think fast before he was punched in the chest with En's fist. He flew backwards into a tree where he soon got up. Glancing around, Mizuki got into a defensive taijutsu style and barely had time to block En's leg that had swept downward to his face by using his arms in an X formation. Even then he was pushed backwards from the force with his muscles spazzing slightly from the electricity. En appeared behind Mizuki and kicked him in the side, causing him to skid back several feet by applying chakra to his feet to not cause him to fly back in the trees. En took notice of the large scroll on Mizuki's back. "What is that scroll, yo? I doubt it's just for show." En rapped. Mizuki had to bite back his retort, remembering the last time he insulted this kid's rap, before he smirked. "This scroll is an important scroll that I stole from Konoha to give to Orochimaru and prove my loyalty to him. I am going to his base right now." En's eyes widened at the mention of the traitorous Sannin, who was known for his experiments on children and prisoners. "I can't let this guy go. Orochimaru could be in Kumo or Lightning One, for all I know." En thought. "What scroll is it?" En asked, wondering if he would tell him. Inside him, Kyuubi snorted. "Kid, I doubt anyone would be stupid enough to tell an enemy what sort of important scroll they stole fro. It's Konoha's scroll of sealing with some of Konoha's most powerful kinjutsu and techniques." Mizuki said proudly. Silence, and then, "Wow, this guy is dumb as hell." Towick En gave a mental nod in agreement. "When you told me you worked for Orochimaru, I knew I would have to capture you. And now that I find out that you have a scroll with some of Konoha's most powerful jutsu, I have capture you." En said seriously as he charged up his lightning armor to where it was at 30% of power. It was overkill since he could fight Mizuki with just 15%, but En knew he had to capture this man and wasn't going to take any chances. Mizuki, being the idiot that he is, decided to end this fight once and for all and rushed at En, going on offensive, aiming for a punch at his head. That was mistake. Mizuki's punch seemed to come in slow motion to En since he had been hit by A and his dad faster in their practices. This was nothing. He sidestepped and gave a quick punch to Mizuki, which combined with his raw strength and the strength of his lightning armor caused him to fly backwards. Mizuki struggled to stand since lightning was randomly sparking from his body thanks to En's lightning armor, and could only watch as En gathered crimson lightning in his hand until a glove of crimson lightning covered his hands. "I tuned this down since I need to get you alive for interrogation, but it's gonna hurt like hell. Too bad I don't care ya dis de rap, then my lightning is gonna make ya head ring like a bell." En rapped before rushing at Mizuki, his arms stretched out in front of him. Mizuki struggled to move but couldn't, and could only watch as, lightning style, lightning fist, and was punched in the chest, and the world turned black as Mizuki faded into the sweet and not so gentle embrace of unconsciousness. En watched as Mizuki fell unconscious and smirked. "Ya don't diss the rap, ya fool." He looked at the scroll of sealing on Mizuki's back and decided to check and see if it really was the actual scroll. Opening it up, En was greeted with the sight of different types of jutsu and kinjutsu. "I'll be a son of a gun, this is the actual scroll of sealing. Ah yeah, this is defiantly gonna make my mission record look good." First C rank managed to acquire Konoha's famed scroll of sealing with some of Konoha's most powerful techniques and captured a subordinate of Orochimaru. "Dad's gonna be so proud." En thought with a grin. En then remembered his team and used his sensing ability and found them about 1.5 kilometers from where he came, meaning he had at least 15 minutes to learn some of the just you on the scroll. Pursuing through the scroll, he saw one that caught his eye. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Let's see, allows user to experience whatever the clone experiences, making it good for training or recon. Should only be used for people with large chakra reserves. Well, I'm a Jinchuriki, I think I'm fine in that department. En said to himself as he got up and started to try and learn the Shadow Clone Just You. This was the scene Team Darui had arrived at. After En had left to cool down, the rest of the team had packed up to catch up to En. When Yugito had sensed En in a fight, they had hurried to now find En surrounded by 10 other Ens, a large open scroll at his feet, a destroyed clearing where it was clear a battle